Third big issue, climate change. I call this chapter in the book Global Weirding. Global weirding. It's a term coined by Hunter Lovins, the Rocky Mountain Institute, because we're not going to have global warming. Global warming, it sounds so nice. You know, to a kid from Minnesota, global warming, that sounds like golf in December, I got to tell you. All right. Global warming, that's really... No, we're going to get global weirding. And global weirding is what actually happens with climate change. The weather gets weird. The hots get hotter. The colds get colder. The dries get longer. The droughts more intense. The rain's heavier. The snow's thicker. That's what actually happens with climate change. The extremes get more extreme, including the frequency of the most extreme hurricanes. I begin this chapter, though, because I'm not a scientist, I begin this chapter really with a couple of philosophical questions that I think are raised by climate change, which really interest me most. And the two questions I begin this chapter with are, who made it hot? Who made it hot? And doesn't Al Gore owe us all a big apology? Well, what's that about? Well, who made it hot came from a discussion I had with Professor Nate Lewis at Caltech, a great energy chemist and one of my real tutors for the book. We were having lunch at the faculty club at Caltech, the Athenaeum, swilling pink lemonade, the specialty of the house. It was shortly after Katrina, and I said to Nate, what was it about Katrina that so bothered us? And he thought about that for a second, and eventually he said, who made it hot? At first, I didn't know what he was saying, and then I thought about it, and I realized what he was saying. What he was saying was we, humans, have introduced so much CO2 into Mother Nature's operating system that we no longer know the difference between an active God and an active man. Did we make Katrina, or did he make Katrina? Are we making it hot now? Or is he making it hot? That's Greenland Ice Melt, 1992 on the left. That's Greenland Ice Melt, 2002. I was in Greenland 2 months ago, way, way up north at an ice core research station. Greenland, in the summer of 2007, lost, through melt and breakage from the ice cap into the sea, twice the amount of ice of all the European Alps. It rained last December in Ilulissat, Greenland, which is right around here. It doesn't rain at Christmas in Ilulissat. When the IPCC, the UN's climate group study, first came out, about 3 years ago, it predicted that all the sea ice in the Arctic would be gone in summer by the year 2050. Then they moved it a few months later to 2040. A year later to 2030. 6 months later to 2020. Latest report, last summer, all of the sea ice in the Arctic will probably be gone in summer by 2012. That's how quickly the models are changing. Sea ice is very important because when it melts, you lose the reflectivity, sending the sun rays back, and the sun just warms the water. And since you have hugely important global currents that run through there, it has enormous feedback potential. From 2050 to 2012 in 3 years. And while everyone's been yelling at Al Gore, all these climate deniers, how wrong he was. By the way, you know, my friend Joe Rahm, he's a climate expert down in Washington. Joe likes to say that there's many good things about improved health care, but the best is that all the climate deniers are going to live long enough to see how wrong they were. Okay? The fourth issue on my list here is energy poverty. Energy poverty is the 1.6 billion people on the planet who have no on-off switch in their life. That's right, 1 out of 4, actually more than 1 out of 4 people on this planet do not have regular connection to a network electric grid. More than 1 out of 4 people, 1.6 billion people live with no on-off switch in their life. I call that energy poverty. Last year, all of sub-Saharan Africa, excluding South Africa, created 1 new gigawatt of electric power. China creates a new gigawatt of electric power every 2 weeks. China generates as much new electricity every 2 weeks as all of sub-Saharan Africa, excluding South Africa, does in 1 year. That is a huge, huge problem, which I call energy poverty. Why is energy poverty important? Because in a world that's hot, flat, and crowded, you do not want to be energy poor. Without energy, you can't drill a deeper well when the hots get hotter. Without energy, you can't even turn on a fan when the dries get drier. And most of all, without energy, you can't get to Google. You can't get online. And if you cannot get to Google, it means you cannot get to the source of all the world's knowledge. And if you can't get to Google today, you will not fall behind arithmetically. You will fall behind exponentially. Last problem is biodiversity loss. Biodiversity loss is the fact that we are in the midst of a mass extinction phase today. We are losing plant and animal species at 1,000 times the norm. If anything else were 1,000 times the norm today, the spread of HIV/AIDS, rainfall, snowfall, that's all we'd be talking about. Well, right now, 1 new species, according to Conservation International, goes extinct every 20 minutes. 1 new species goes extinct every 20 minutes. That's what happens in a world that's hot, flat, and crowded. So we're in the middle of a huge extinction phase, and I call this chapter The Age of Noah. And it's built around 2 giant soft-shell freshwater turtles that are being kept alive in 2 different Chinese zoos. One is a male, one is a female. One is 80 years old, one is 100 years old. They are the last 2 of their species, and the Chinese are trying to get them to mate. Not so easy. And I call this chapter The Age of Noah because those 2 turtles represent the very unique challenge of your generation as students. You are the first generation of humans who will actually have to think like Noah and save the last 2 pairs. You are the first generation of humans since Noah who are going to need a strategy for saving the last 2 pairs of more and more species, because in your life, you are going to meet the last 2 pair of more and more species.